The morning sun rose over the research station on Kepler 438b, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Dr. Hana stood at the observation deck, watching her team work in the laboratories below. The humans moved quietly, carefully, always aware that their alien masters could arrive at any moment. Hana had been running this research station for 3 years now. The Velthari Empire had placed humans here to study local plant life. They called it research, but Hana knew better. Humans were nothing more than tools to the Velthari, disposable tools that could be replaced easily. The galaxy had rules. The Velthari sat at the top as the alpha species. They were tall, elegant beings with silver skin and large black eyes. Their technology was beyond anything humans could imagine. They could read minds, control matter with their thoughts, and travel between stars in minutes. Below them came their client races. The Corvin were massive warriors with thick armor-like skin. They served as the Empire's military force. The Nethys looked like floating jellyfish but could speak directly into anyone's mind. The Axiom Collective were half-machine, half-organic beings who managed the Empire's technology. Then came the middle races, the Betas and Gammas. They ran businesses, managed colonies, and served the higher species. They had some freedom but always remembered their place. At the bottom were species like humans, the Epsilon class, barely intelligent animals according to Velthari science, good for manual labor, simple tasks, and biological experiments. Nothing more. Hana walked down to the main laboratory where Do-hyun was working on soil samples. The young engineer looked up and smiled, but his eyes showed the same fear they all carried. Yesterday they had lost Sunho to a Velthari punishment. He had spoken out of turn during an inspection. The alien had simply pointed at him, and Sunho had collapsed, his mind destroyed in seconds. Any interesting findings? Hana asked, trying to keep her voice normal. Do-hyun nodded toward his computer screen. The mineral content here is unusual. Very high concentrations of rare elements. I think that's why they really want us studying this place. Hana understood. The Velthari never told humans the real reasons for their work. They just gave orders and expected obedience. But Do-hyun was smart. He could figure out patterns that others missed. In the communications room, Mira was monitoring the station's systems. She was the youngest member of their team, barely 25, but she had a gift with technology. Sometimes Hana wondered if Mira understood their equipment better than their Velthari supervisors realized. "Dr. Hana," Mira called softly. "I'm picking up signals. A Velthari ship is approaching." The fear hit Hana's stomach like a cold stone. Inspections were always dangerous. The Velthari came to check on their work, but they also came to remind humans of their place. Sometimes team members disappeared during these visits. Sometimes they came back changed, their minds broken by Velthari mental probes. The ship landed outside the station with a sound like thunder. It was sleek and beautiful, made of materials that seemed to shift between solid and liquid. Hana gathered her team in the main laboratory and waited. Overlord Tyven entered the station like he owned it, which he did. He was typical of his species, tall, graceful, with skin that looked like polished silver. His black eyes seemed to look right through the humans as if they were not quite real. 2 Corvin guards followed him. They were huge creatures, nearly 8 feet tall, with thick gray skin that looked like rock. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy. Behind them came a Nethys advisor, floating silently, its tentacles moving in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Humans. Tyven's voice echoed in their minds rather than their ears. All Velthari could speak this way. "Present your research." Hana stepped forward, keeping her eyes down. Looking directly at a Velthari was considered disrespectful. "We have completed analysis of the local ecosystem, Overlord. The soil composition shows silence." The word hit her mind like a physical blow. "I did not ask for your interpretation. Show me the data." Do-hyun quickly activated the computer displays. Charts and graphs filled the screens, showing weeks of careful work. The mineral surveys, plant analysis, atmospheric readings, everything the humans had discovered about this world. Tyven studied the data for several minutes. His expression never changed, but Hana could feel his amusement like a cold wind. Finally, he turned to face the human team. "Fascinating," he said, and somehow the word felt like an insult. "You primitive minds have actually managed to collect useful information. Though of course you understand none of it." He gestured to the mineral analysis. "You see numbers and patterns. We see the building blocks of hyperspace technology, This world will become a mining operation within the year. Your kind will work the mines, naturally. Hana felt her heart sink. Mining operations were death sentences for humans. The work was dangerous, the conditions terrible. Few humans survived more than a few months in Velthari mines. However, Tyven continued, some of you have shown unexpected competence. Perhaps you deserve a reward. The Overlord walked slowly among the human team, studying each face. When he reached Jinwoo, one of the junior researchers, he stopped. This one questioned a procedure yesterday, Tyven said, his mental voice filled with dark amusement. He suggested an alternative method for soil analysis. Quite bold for an Epsilon. Jinwoo began to shake. Everyone knew what happened to humans who showed too much initiative. Please, Overlord, Hana stepped forward. He meant no disrespect. He was only trying to think. Tyven's laughter was like ice in their minds. How amusing. An Epsilon trying to think? The Overlord raised his hand and energy began to gather around his fingers. The air itself seemed to bend and twist. Jinwoo fell to his knees, clutching his head as psychic energy invaded his mind. Stop, Hana shouted. But one of the Corvin guards grabbed her arm with crushing force. Tyven's power grew stronger. Jinwoo screamed, his body convulsing as alien thoughts tore through his consciousness. The other humans watched in horror, powerless to help their friend. Let this be a lesson, Tyven said calmly as he increased the mental assault. Epsilon species exist to serve, not to think, not to question, not to improve. Jinwoo's scream stopped suddenly. He collapsed to the floor, his eyes staring at nothing. Alive, but his mind was gone forever. Now, Tyven turned back to the remaining humans with satisfaction. Who else wishes to show initiative? The team stood in terrified silence. Another friend lost to Velthari cruelty. Another reminder that they were nothing more than property in this vast empire. But in the communications room, Mira's equipment continued to work quietly. Hidden in the regular station reports were coded messages, data streams that looked like routine maintenance signals. Information was flowing from this distant world to places the Velthari never imagined. Earth was listening, and Earth was learning. Tyven left the station an hour later, satisfied with his demonstration of power. The humans gathered around Jinwoo's broken form, but there was nothing they could do for him now. In the days that followed, the team worked in heavy silence. But in secret moments, when they were sure no alien eyes were watching, they continued their real work. The work that might someday matter more than any soil sample or mineral survey. The work of staying human in a galaxy that said they were nothing at all. 6 months had passed since Overlord Tyven's visit. The research station felt different now, quieter and sadder. Jinwoo still sat in the medical bay, staring at nothing, his mind lost forever. The team took turns caring for him, but they all knew he would never come back. Hana tried to keep everyone focused on their work. The Velthari expected regular reports, and failing to deliver them would bring more punishment. But it was hard to concentrate when death could come at any moment. Do-hyun spent most of his time in the engineering section now. He had taken over maintenance of the station's communication systems after the previous technician, Minsu, had been taken away for questioning by Velthari security forces. No one had seen Minsu since. The young engineer was good with the alien technology, better than anyone expected. Sometimes Hana wondered if he understood it too well. The Velthari didn't like humans who showed too much skill with their machines. Mira worked her usual shift in the communications room, monitoring incoming and outgoing signals. She had grown quiet since Jinwoo's injury, speaking only when necessary. But her eyes had changed. There was something new there, something that looked almost like hope. That hope had a reason. Late one evening, as the station's lights dimmed for the night cycle, Mira's console began showing unusual readings. The signals were faint, hidden in the normal background noise of space. But they were there. Dr. Hana, Mira called softly. I need you to see this. Hana hurried to the communications room. On Mira's screen, buried in layers of static and interference, was a pattern. A very specific pattern that made Hana's heart race. Is that? She began. Earth, Mira whispered. It's definitely from Earth. The signal was encrypted, coded in a way that looked like random noise to anyone who didn't know what to look for. But Hana had helped design the system years ago, back when humans first made contact with the Velthari Empire. The message was short. Package delivered. Prepare for extraction. Hana felt fear and excitement fighting in her chest. For months, they had been sending information back to Earth through hidden channels. Data about Velthari technology, military movements, anything that might be useful. They had never been sure if anyone was receiving their messages. Now they knew someone was listening. 3 days later, the package arrived. The ship appeared without warning, materializing near the station's landing pad like a ghost becoming solid. It was unlike anything Hana had ever seen, clearly built with human design principles, but using technology that shouldn't exist. The vessel was small, meant for maybe 6 people, but it hummed with power that made the air vibrate. Its hull seemed to bend light around it, making it hard to look at directly. Most importantly, it had somehow appeared without triggering any of the station's alien detection systems. Captain Jiwan stepped out of the ship wearing a uniform Hana didn't recognize. She was a small woman, maybe 40 years old, but she moved with the confidence of someone who had seen real combat. Behind her came 3 other humans, 2 men and a woman, all wearing the same strange uniform. "Dr. Hana?" Jiwan's voice was calm and professional. "I'm Captain Jiwan, United Earth Defense Force. We're here to get you out." "United Earth Defense Force?" Hana stared at the uniform, trying to process what she was seeing. "I've never heard of—" "That's because we didn't exist 6 months ago," Jiwan interrupted. "A lot has changed on Earth, Doctor. We need to move quickly." The captain's team spread out through the station with practiced efficiency. They knew exactly where to go, what to look for. One of them, a tall man with serious eyes, went straight to Do-hyun's engineering station. "You're the one who's been sending the technical data," he said. It wasn't a question. Do-hyun nodded nervously. "I tried to hide the transmissions in routine reports. I wasn't sure if anyone was receiving them." "Oh, we received them." The man smiled grimly. "Those transmissions have been very helpful. Earth owes you a great debt." Captain Jiwan gathered the research team in the main laboratory. Jin-woo was there too, though he couldn't understand what was happening around him. "I know this is confusing," Jiwan began, "but Earth has been preparing for this moment since the Velthari first made contact. We've been building, learning, getting ready." She activated a small device, and holographic images filled the air above them. Ships, weapons, technology that looked like a fusion of human and alien designs. Every human who died in their service, every piece of information smuggled out of alien facilities, every sacrifice made by people like you, it all had a purpose. Earth has been listening, and Earth has been building. Hana stared at the images in amazement and disbelief. "How is this possible?" "The Velthari would never allow—" "The Velthari don't know," Jiwan said simply. "Their biggest weakness is their arrogance. They can't imagine that a species they consider barely intelligent could threaten them. They've been watching Earth, but they've only been looking for the threats they expect to see." One of Jiwan's team members, a woman with silver hair, spoke up. "Dr. Hana, your research into Velthari psychology has been particularly valuable. Their entire society is built on assumed superiority. They've never faced an opponent they couldn't predict." "That's about to change," Jiwan said. The captain explained their plan. It was dangerous, probably impossible, but it was also humanity's only chance. Earth had built a fleet of ships using reverse-engineered alien technology. They were going to strike at the heart of the Velthari Empire before the aliens realized what was happening. "We need to evacuate this station," Jiwan continued. "Intelligence suggests the Velthari are planning to convert this world to a mining operation within days. Your research team will be transferred to the mines or eliminated." As if summoned by her words, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Mira's voice came over the communication system, tight with fear. "Velthari patrol ships incoming. 3 vessels, heavily armed." Jiwan cursed and activated her communication device. "This is Alpha Team. We have hostile contacts inbound. Prepare for emergency extraction." The next few minutes were chaos. Jiwan's team moved with military precision, gathering essential equipment and research data. The human researchers grabbed what they could carry, including medical supplies for Jinwoo. "The ship can't take everyone," Jiwan said grimly as explosions began lighting up the sky outside. "Maximum capacity is 8 people." Hana looked around at her team. Do-hyun, Mira, herself, Jinwoo, and 3 other researchers. 7 people plus Jiwan's team of 4. Too many. "I'll stay," Mira said quietly. "No." Hana started to protest, but Mira was already moving toward the communication station. "Someone needs to destroy the research data," Mira explained. If the Velthari get access to our real findings, they'll know Earth has been involved. I can overload the station's reactor, make it look like an accident. Mira, that's suicide, Do-Yun said. Maybe. She smiled sadly. But it's also the best chance for the rest of you to escape. And for Earth to succeed. Outside, the Velthari ships were getting closer. Their energy weapons began striking the station's outer defenses. The building shook with each impact. We're out of time, Ji-Won said. If we're going to move, it has to be now. Mira was already working at her console, her fingers flying over alien controls she understood better than anyone expected. Warning lights began flashing as she initiated the reactor overload sequence. Get Jinwoo to Earth, she said without looking up. Maybe human doctors can help him. Hana wanted to argue, to find another way, but more explosions rocked the station. Pieces of the ceiling began falling around them. The evacuation was a nightmare of running through collapsing corridors while alien energy weapons lit up the sky. Ji-Won's ship lifted off just as the first Velthari soldiers entered the station. From the ship's window, Hana watched the research station grow smaller below them. She could see Velthari troops moving through the buildings, searching for survivors. Then the reactor exploded. The explosion was beautiful and terrible, a miniature sun that consumed the entire research complex in seconds. Any evidence of Earth's involvement vanished in that light along with Mira's final sacrifice. Tell Earth, her last transmission had said, crackling through the static as the explosion began. Tell Earth we were never Epsilon. Ji-Won's ship jumped to hyperspace just as more Velthari vessels arrived at the scene. Overlord Tyvan himself led the investigation, staring at the expanding cloud of debris that had once been a research station. For the first time in his long life, the Velthari overlord felt something he didn't recognize. It might have been doubt. In hyperspace, racing toward Earth, Hana held Jinwoo's hand and mourned for Mira. But she also felt something growing in her chest. Something the Velthari had tried to crush out of every human in the galaxy. Hope on Earth was fighting back, and the war was about to begin. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect silence across 7 star systems. Captain Ji-Won stood on the bridge of her ship, the Indomitable, as Velthari Prime grew larger on the main screen. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their faces showing the determination of people who knew this was humanity's only chance. All ships report ready. Captain, her communications officer announced. Lieutenant Hyejin had volunteered for this mission, after losing her entire family to Velthari experiments. Like everyone else on the ship, she had personal reasons for being here. Signal from Admiral Kyung-ho, another officer reported. Operation Liberation is authorized to begin. Ji-Won took a deep breath. 20 years of preparation had led to this moment. All ships, this is Captain Ji-Won. Execute Operation Liberation. For every human who died believing they were nothing, show them what we really are. Across the galaxy, the attack began simultaneously. At the Velthari Military Academy on Velthari Prime's moon, Captain Taeyang's strike force hit the installation before the aliens knew they were there. The academy was supposed to be impregnable, protected by shields that could stop entire fleets. But human engineers had spent years studying Velthari shield technology. They knew the frequencies, the power sources, the control systems. Taeyang's ships passed through the shields like they weren't there. Impossible, whispered Academy Commander Veltar, as human ships materialized inside his defenses. Their technology shouldn't work like that. What the Velthari didn't understand was that human technology didn't follow their rules. Where the aliens used psychic energy to control matter directly, humans used machines and computers and engineering solutions that the Velthari couldn't predict. The Academy's defenses were designed to stop Velthari weapons. Corvin assault ships' Nethys psychic attacks. They had never been tested against human ingenuity. Taeyang's ships moved through the Academy's defensive formations like dancers, their weapons striking with precision that seemed impossible. Every shot hit exactly where it needed to, disabling key systems without unnecessary destruction. Target their command centers only, Taeyang ordered. We're here to liberate, not to massacre. On Velthari Prime itself, Captain Ji-Won faced a more difficult challenge. The planet's orbital defenses were massive, ancient structures that had protected the Velthari homeworld for millennia. But Ji-Won had advantages that no previous attacker had possessed. Captain, her tactical officer called out, we're receiving data streams from the surface. Human slaves in the defense control centers are providing targeting information. For 20 years, humans had been placed in supporting roles throughout Velthari society. The aliens saw them as useful tools, barely intelligent enough to operate simple machinery. They never imagined that these tools were actually intelligence gatherers, saboteurs, and now, allies in their own liberation. The orbital defense platforms turned their massive weapons toward the approaching human fleet. Energy beams that could destroy moons lanced out toward Jiwan's ships, but the ships weren't where the beams expected them to be. Evasive pattern Mira, Jiwan ordered, naming the maneuver after the friend who had died to make this moment possible. The human ships moved in ways that violated everything the Velthari knew about space combat. They didn't follow predictable flight paths or standard tactical formations. Instead, they flowed like water, like a school of fish, each ship responding to threats that hadn't even materialized yet. How are they doing that? Overlord Taven demanded from his command ship. He had been promoted to Supreme Commander after the incident at the research station, and now he was watching his supposedly invincible defenses crumble. Unknown. Supreme Commander, his tactical advisor replied. Their movement patterns don't match any known combat doctrine. It's like they're improvising. That was exactly what they were doing. The Velthari fought according to rigid plans developed over centuries of dominance. Every battle followed established patterns, predictable strategies that their psychic abilities allowed them to coordinate perfectly. But humans had always been different. On Earth, they had learned to fight not with overwhelming power, but with creativity, adaptation, and the ability to make quick decisions under pressure. The human ships reached the orbital platforms and began their real work. Instead of trying to destroy the massive structures, they attached small devices to key points on their hulls. What are those? Tyven demanded. The answer came seconds later as the devices activated. They weren't weapons. They were computer viruses, designed specifically for Velthari technology. The orbital platforms stopped firing as their control systems were overridden by programs written by human engineers who had spent years studying alien software. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out at every major Velthari military installation. Human ships appeared where they shouldn't be, moved in ways that seemed impossible, and struck with weapons the aliens had never seen before. At the Corvin training facility in the Rigel system, Captain Yunbi's fleet faced a different challenge. The Corvin were warriors, bred for combat over countless generations. They wouldn't surrender easily. Incoming transmission from the Corvin commander, her communications officer reported. Put him on screen. The Corvin who appeared on her display was massive, even by the standards of his species. Battle scars covered his armor like skin and his eyes burned with fury. Human insects, he snarled. You dare attack the servants of the Velthari? We will crush you like the vermin you are. Commander, Yunbi replied calmly, we're not here to fight you. We're here to offer you a choice. Continue serving masters who see you as nothing more than useful animals, or join us in creating a galaxy where strength serves justice. The Corvin's laugh was like grinding stone. You think we will betray our oaths for the words of an Epsilon species? You understand nothing. I understand that the Velthari have never let Corvin warriors fight as equals, Yunbi said. You're their attack dogs, sent to die in their wars while they remain safe behind their shields. We're offering you the chance to fight alongside allies who respect your strength. For a moment, the Corvin commander's expression changed. Behind the fury, Yunbi could see something else. Doubt, perhaps, or long-buried resentment. But his conditioning was too strong. We serve the Alpha, he declared, and we will destroy you. The battle that followed was brutal but brief. The Corvin fought with the courage and skill of born warriors, but their ships were designed for conventional warfare. They couldn't adapt to human tactics that seemed to break every rule of combat. When it was over, Yunbi stood on the bridge of her ship, looking at the wreckage of the Corvin fleet floating in space. She felt no satisfaction in the victory. These were brave beings who had died serving masters who didn't value their lives. Captain, her tactical officer said quietly, we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining Corvin ships. Accept their surrender, Yunbi ordered, and send medical teams to help their wounded. At the Nethys Psychic Research Facility, Captain Su Yung faced the strangest battle of all. The Nethys didn't fight with ships or weapons. They attacked minds directly, trying to overwhelm their enemies with psychic assaults that could drive beings insane. But the Nethys discovered something that shocked them to their core. They couldn't read human thoughts. Impossible, whispered High Scion Velneth as her mental probe slid off human minds like water off glass. Every intelligent species is susceptible to psychic contact. It's a law of nature. What the Nethys didn't understand was that human consciousness was fundamentally different from other species. Where most beings had minds that were open to psychic influence, humans had evolved with mental barriers that the Velthari had always dismissed as primitive cognitive static. All ships, advance on the facility, Captain Suyong ordered. They can't stop us if they can't predict our movements. The Nethys tried every psychic technique they knew, but nothing worked. They couldn't read human intentions, couldn't plant false thoughts, couldn't create the mental confusion that had always been their greatest weapon. In desperation, they activated their facility's final defense, a psychic amplifier that could destroy minds across an entire star system. The device charged with power that made space itself ripple with distorted thought. And then it exploded. Dohyun's virus, planted in the facility's computers months earlier through routine maintenance reports, had finally activated. The amplifier overloaded and destroyed itself, taking most of the research facility with it. Surrender, Captain Suyong broadcast to the surviving Nethys. Your psychic weapons can't touch us, and we have no desire to kill you unnecessarily. One by one, across 7 star systems, the great military installations of the Velthari Empire fell to human attack. The Axiom Collective's cybernetic stronghold was overwhelmed by computer viruses they couldn't detect. The Velthari's primary shipyard was captured by strike teams that materialized inside its shields. On Velthari Prime, Overlord Tyvan watched his empire crumble in real time. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy, humans everywhere moving with coordination that should have been impossible, using technology that shouldn't exist. How? He whispered to himself. How can Epsilon species defeat the Alpha? His answer came in the form of Captain Jiwan's face appearing on his command screen. The hidden facility beneath the Pacific Ocean was larger than anything Hana had imagined possible. Captain Jiwan led their group through corridors that stretched for miles underground, past laboratories and factories that hummed with constant activity. How long has this been here? Hana asked as they walked past a massive chamber where humans in work suits assembled strange-looking spacecraft. Construction began the day after first contact with the Velthari, Jiwan replied. 20 years of preparation for this moment. They passed rooms full of equipment that seemed to blend human and alien technology in ways that shouldn't work. Engineers moved between workstations, their faces focused and determined. Everyone here knew what was at stake. Hana carried Jinwoo in a medical transport chair. The journey from Kepler 438b had been difficult for him, but human doctors were already working to help repair the damage to his mind. They couldn't fix everything the Velthari had done, but there was hope. The medical team wants to see him immediately, Jiwan said as they reached a junction in the corridor. Dr. Kim thinks she might be able to restore some of his cognitive function. Hana squeezed Jinwoo's hand before the medical team took him away. His eyes were still empty, but sometimes she thought she saw flickers of the person he used to be. Do-hyun walked beside them, staring in amazement at everything they passed. This is incredible, he whispered. How did you hide all this from the Velthari? The same way we hid everything else, a new voice said behind them. By being exactly what they expected us to be. They turned to see a tall man in an admiral's uniform approaching. He was older, maybe 60, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. But he walked with confidence that filled the entire corridor. Admiral Kyung-ho, Jiwan saluted. I present Dr. Hana and Engineer Do-hyun from the Kepler Research Station. Admiral Kyung-ho studied them both with sharp eyes. The ones who've been sending us intelligence for the past year. Your transmission saved a lot of lives. We did what we could, Hana said, but we lost good people. Mira died getting us out. I know. The Admiral's voice was gentle. Her sacrifice will be remembered. But right now, we need your knowledge to finish what she started. He led them through the facility, explaining as they walked. The underground complex housed the entire United Earth Defense Force, a military organization that officially didn't exist. Every nation on Earth had contributed people, resources, and technology to this project. The Velthari think they know everything about human civilization, Admiral Kyung-ho explained. They see our surface cities, our governments, our normal military forces. What they don't see is this. They entered a massive chamber that took Hana's breath away. The ceiling stretched up into darkness, and the floor was filled with spacecraft unlike anything she had ever seen. Sleek vessels that seemed to flow like water, covered in armor that shifted color as she watched. "Our entire fleet," the admiral said with pride. 150 ships built using technology that the Velthari's own arrogance helped us acquire. Dohyun was staring at the nearest ship with the eyes of an engineer. "The power systems. How did you solve the energy distribution problem?" A woman in a lab coat approached them. She was about Hana's age, with intelligent eyes and hands stained with machine oil. "Dr. Sunmi," she introduced herself. "Chief Engineer of the Defense Force, and to answer your question, we didn't solve it. We replaced it." She led them to one of the ships and opened a panel in its hull. Inside, Hana could see technology that looked like it was grown rather than built. Organic curves blended with crystalline structures that pulsed with inner light. "Velthari technology is based on psychic energy manipulation," Dr. Sunmi explained. "They use their minds to control matter and energy directly. But human technology has always been different. We build tools to do what we can't do ourselves. So you combined both approaches," Dohyun said, understanding immediately. "Exactly. Velthari power systems controlled by human engineering. It gives us capabilities that they can't predict because they can't imagine this kind of hybrid approach." Admiral Kyung-ho led them deeper into the facility, to a chamber that served as the main command center. Here, representatives from every major nation on Earth worked together at stations monitoring the entire galaxy. "This is where we coordinate everything," the admiral explained. "Every human slave in Velthari space, every research station, every mining operation, they're all part of our intelligence network." The center of the room held a massive holographic display showing the galaxy in 3 dimensions. Red dots marked Velthari military installations, blue dots showed human populations, and green dots indicated allied species that might join a rebellion. "The Velthari control 47 star systems directly," Admiral Kyung-ho said, pointing to clusters of red dots. "Their client races control another 112 systems. But their real power comes from these." 7 red dots pulsed brighter than the others, scattered across the galaxy in a defensive pattern. "Military command centers," Dr. Sunmi said. "Each one controls the defenses for an entire sector. If we can take out all 7 simultaneously, the Velthari lose their ability to coordinate a response." "Simultaneously?" Hana stared at the display. "The distances involved. How is that possible?" "By using their own technology against them," Admiral Kyung-ho smiled grimly. "Velthari hyperspace communication is instantaneous across any distance. We've learned to tap into their network." A young officer approached with a tablet full of data. "Admiral, we're receiving confirmation from all strike teams. Every group is in position and ready to proceed." Hana felt her heart racing. "You're really going to do this?" "Attack the entire Velthari Empire." "Not attack," the admiral corrected. "Liberation. For every species they've enslaved, every world they've conquered, every mind they've broken. This isn't about revenge, Dr. Hana, this is about freedom." Captain Ji-won stepped forward. "Sir, request permission to address the strike force commanders." "Granted." The holographic display changed to show the faces of ship captains positioned throughout the galaxy. Men and women of every nationality, united in purpose. Hana recognized the determination in their eyes. The same look she had seen in Mira's face during their last moments on Kepler 438b. "All strike teams. This is Admiral Kyung-ho." The admiral's voice echoed through the command center. "In 36 hours we begin Operation Liberation. Every human who has died in Velthari slavery, every mind they have broken, every spirit they have tried to crush, they all demand justice." He paused, looking around the room at the hundreds of people working to make this moment possible. "But this is not just about justice. This is about proving that intelligence and determination can overcome arrogance and cruelty. The Velthari believe they are superior because they were born with psychic abilities. We're going to show them that true superiority comes from what you choose to do with your life." The captains' faces on the display showed fierce agreement. These were people who had volunteered for a mission they might not survive, for the chance to free the galaxy from tyranny. "Remember," Admiral Kyung-ho continued, "we're not trying to become the new oppressors. We're fighting to create a galaxy where every species can determine its own destiny. Where strength serves justice, not the other way around. Understood?" "Admiral?" The voices came from across the galaxy in unison. After the briefing ended, Hana found herself alone with Admiral Kyung-ho in his office. The walls were covered with photographs, human research teams, mining operations, slave workers, all the people they were fighting for. "Are we really ready for this?" she asked. "The Velthari have dominated the galaxy for thousands of years." "Dr. Hana," the Admiral said quietly, "the Velthari have one critical weakness. They can't imagine being wrong. Their entire society is built on the assumption that they are naturally superior to everyone else." He gestured to a photograph of a human mining crew, their faces exhausted but not broken. "They look at us and see primitive animals. What they don't see is that we've been studying them for 20 years, learning their technology, understanding their psychology, preparing for this moment. And if we fail, then we'll have died as free beings instead of living as slaves. But Dr. Hana, I don't think we're going to fail. The Velthari have never faced an enemy they couldn't predict. They've never fought someone who could match their technology while remaining completely invisible to their psychic surveillance." That night, Hana stood on an observation deck looking up at the stars through the facility's hidden dome. Somewhere out there, human strike teams were moving into position for the most audacious military operation in galactic history. Do-hyun joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Thinking about tomorrow?" "Thinking about Mira," Hana replied. "About Jinwoo. About everyone we've lost along the way. They'll be remembered," Do-hyun said softly. "Whatever happens tomorrow, the galaxy will never forget that humans refuse to accept their place at the bottom." Above them, the stars seemed brighter than usual, as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath, waiting to see if freedom could triumph over oppression. The age of the Velthari was about to end. The question was, what would replace it? 1 year after the fall of the Velthari Empire, Admiral Kyung-ho stood before the newly constructed Galactic Council chambers on what had once been the aliens' capital world. The building was different from the towering spires that had dominated the city before. Lower, more open, with spaces designed for beings of many different sizes and shapes. The Admiral looked out over the assembled representatives and felt a mixture of pride and uncertainty. Delegates from 47 species filled the chamber, former slaves and former masters sitting together as equals for the first time in galactic history. "The Council recognizes Admiral Kyung-ho of Earth," announced the session moderator, a Corvan warrior named Thane, who had volunteered to help establish the new government. Kyung-ho approached the central podium, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. A year ago, no human would have been allowed to speak in this chamber. Now they were helping to lead the galaxy into an uncertain future. "Representatives," he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "1 year ago we stood together in revolution. Today we must prove that we can stand together in peace." The past year had not been easy. The collapse of the Velthari Empire had left chaos across the galaxy. Some former client species had tried to claim the aliens' territory for themselves. Pirates and warlords had emerged in the power vacuum. There had been conflicts, misunderstandings, and moments when the new alliance had seemed ready to fall apart, but somehow they had held together. In the front row of the chamber sat Captain Ji-won, now governor of the former Velthari territories. She had spent the year working with alien populations who had known only domination and hierarchy, helping them learn to govern themselves. It hadn't been simple. Many Velthari still believed they were naturally superior to other species. Some had refused to accept the new order and had retreated to isolated colonies, but others, especially the younger generation, had embraced the chance to build something better. "The Velthari taught us that strength meant domination," Ji-won had said in a recent report. "We're teaching them that true strength means protecting others." Behind her sat Dr. Hana, now director of the Institute for Interspecies Understanding. She had spent the year studying how different species could work together, developing new approaches to diplomacy and cooperation. One of her greatest successes had been with the Nethys. The psychic jellyfish-like beings had been devastated by their inability to communicate telepathically with humans. Many had fallen into depression, feeling cut off from the mental unity they had always known. "We helped them understand that different forms of communication could be just as meaningful," Hana had explained to the council. "They're learning to speak with words instead of thoughts, and they're discovering that it allows for new kinds of understanding." Near the back of the chamber, Do-hyun worked quietly at a technical station, managing the translation systems that allowed dozens of species to communicate simultaneously. The young engineer had become one of the galaxy's leading experts on integrating different technological approaches. His greatest achievement had been the development of hybrid ship designs that combined the best features of multiple species technology. Velthari psychic control systems worked alongside Corvin armor plating and Axiom computational cores, creating vessels that were more capable than anything any single species could have built alone. Technology should serve everyone, Do-hyun often said, not just the species that invented it. Admiral Kyung-ho gestured toward a special section of the chamber where former enemies sat together. Overlord Tyvan was there, no longer wearing the ornate robes of Velthari nobility. He wore simple clothes and served as an advisor on alien psychology, helping the Council understand how to prevent future tyrannies. The transformation had not been easy for him. Tevin had spent centuries believing he was naturally superior to other beings. Learning to see former slaves as equals had required him to question everything he had ever believed about himself and his species. "I was wrong," he had said in his first address to the Council. "My people were wrong. Superiority is not something you're born with. It's something you earn through your actions." Beside him sat Commander Thane, the Corvin warrior who had surrendered after seeing humans treat their prisoners with honor. He had become one of the strongest advocates for the new order, using his influence among other Corvin to prevent uprising and revenge killings. "Honor is not found in serving tyrants," he had declared. "Honor is found in protecting the innocent." Near them, High Scion Velneth of the Nethys floated in her specialized chair, still adjusting to verbal communication, but committed to the new alliance. She had become a key figure in developing peaceful uses for psychic abilities. Admiral Kyung-ho continued his address to the Council. "We face challenges that would have been impossible under the old system. Climate disasters on former mining worlds, refugee populations displaced by centuries of forced relocation, species that have forgotten how to govern themselves." He paused, looking around the chamber at the diverse faces watching him. "But we also have opportunities that the old system could never provide. For the first time in galactic history, every species can contribute their unique strengths to solving common problems." The Admiral activated a holographic display showing reconstruction projects across the galaxy. Former slave worlds were being rebuilt with technology donated by multiple species. Refugees were being resettled on planets that had volunteered to accept them. Educational programs were teaching young beings from all species to work together. The Corvin are teaching defensive tactics to worlds that were never allowed to protect themselves, Kyung-ho explained. The Nethys are using their psychic abilities to help trauma victims heal from centuries of oppression. The Axiom Collective is sharing medical technology that can help species adapt to new environments. "And humans?" asked a delegate from the rear of the chamber. Admiral Kyung-ho smiled. "Humans are doing what we've always done best. We're building bridges between different groups, finding solutions that no one had tried before, and refusing to accept that any problem is impossible to solve." In the medical section of the former capital, Dr. Kim worked with a team of specialists from multiple species to help beings like Jinwoo recover from Velthari mental abuse. The young researcher had regained much of his cognitive function, though he would never be quite the same as before. "The important thing," Dr. Kim often said, "is that he's healing, and he's not alone." Thousands of former slaves were receiving treatment for physical and psychological trauma. The healing process would take generations, but it had begun. Captain Su-young commanded the new Galactic Defense Force, a military organization dedicated to protecting the weak rather than serving the strong. Her ships patrolled former Velthari space, stopping pirates and warlords who tried to take advantage of the transition period. "We're not conquerors," she explained to her crews. "We're guardians. Our job is to make sure everyone has the chance to determine their own future." The Defense Force included volunteers from every species in the Alliance. Corvin warriors served alongside human tacticians, Nethys communication specialists, and Axiom technical experts. They had developed new combat doctrines based on cooperation rather than domination. Admiral Kyung-ho concluded his address by reading from a memorial wall that had been constructed outside the council chambers. Names covered the wall: humans who had died in slavery, aliens who had resisted oppression, beings from every species who had sacrificed for the dream of freedom. "Mira Kim," he read, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. died age 25 at Kepler Research Station. Her last words were, "Tell Earth we were never Epsilon." He continued reading other names. Corvin warriors who had died fighting their own conditioning. Nethys psychics who had refused to torture prisoners. Felthari nobles who had tried to reform their society from within. These beings died believing in something greater than the species hierarchy that had dominated the galaxy for millennia, the Admiral said. They died believing that intelligence and courage could overcome tyranny and cruelty. He looked around the chamber one final time. Today, we prove they were right. The session ended with the formal adoption of the Galactic Charter, a document that established principles of cooperation, equality, and mutual respect among all species. Every delegate signed it, from the smallest insectoid beings to the massive gas giant dwellers. Later that evening, Admiral Kyung-ho stood on an observation deck looking out at the city below. The streets were filled with beings from dozens of species working together, trading, learning from each other. Children who had been born into slavery played alongside the offspring of former masters. Dr. Hana joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee in the human tradition. "Thinking about the future?" she asked. "Thinking about how far we've come," he replied. "A year ago, humans were considered barely intelligent animals. Now we're helping to lead a galactic federation. And thinking about how far we still have to go," Hana added. Kyung-ho nodded. There were still conflicts to resolve, prejudices to overcome, and countless challenges ahead. Some species remained suspicious of the new order. Some humans had difficulty accepting former enemies as allies. The work of building true equality would take generations,